My name is Nora Caldwell, and I'm 29 years old. I used to believe that if I kept my voice soft and my head down, the house would stop shaking. That if I made myself small enough, light enough, the floorboards wouldn't creak when I walked on them, and my mother wouldn't sigh like I'd broken something precious just by breathing. My sister Erica didn't have to tiptoe. She made noise, and the house applauded. When Erica got engaged last fall, it was a coronation. Grand Marlowe Ballroom, 12 crystal chandeliers, a band flown in from New York, valet parking that never seemed to stop. The champagne had gold flakes swirling like confetti in a snow globe. Her dress was designed by someone with a French name that lived in my mouth like a pebble. My father hired a private chef to design a menu that required a prologue. A Cartier bracelet appeared just because, followed by an engagement shoot in Aspen, where the snow looked edited and Erica didn't. Everyone clapped for my parents. They clapped for their taste, their generosity, their beautiful daughter. No one asked where the money came from. No one ever did. So when I told them I was going to propose to Ethan, my boyfriend of 5 years, the man who learned my silences like a language and held our life together with the quiet competence of a good carpenter, I expected something. A dinner. A toast. Maybe just an "I'm proud of you." Instead, my mother handed me a greeting card from the dollar store. Loose glitter stuck to my palms like a rash. Inside was a ring pop, sweating sugar in its plastic. "Don't mess this one up," she said, a smile that didn't touch her eyes. My father chuckled. Erica laughed so hard she almost baptized the table in mimosa. I stared at the candy like it might tell me where my spine went. I folded the card, slipped it into my coat pocket, said nothing. They had money. They spent it like water on Erica. They told themselves it was family money, our money. They never used the word mine when it referred to me. The thing about being the quiet one is people forget you're listening. They think you don't notice. But I notice everything. The way my mother's ring flashes when she signs papers she never reads. The way my father shrugs when numbers don't line up, like the math is rude for contradicting him. The way Erica's new handbags arrive in boxes addressed to consultant. I went home and opened my laptop. My grandfather's trust had my name on it. He left it to me with rules. I couldn't touch it until I turned 25. After that, every time catastrophe struck, medical bills, house repairs, Erica's tuition, my parents nodded toward it like a reservoir meant to keep their garden alive. I said yes so often my mouth forgot how to shape the word no. That night my fingers remembered. I logged into the account. The dashboard loaded with a hungry little spinning circle, and I actually heard my heartbeat. Permissions. Users. Access history. Every time my parents had dipped their cup into the lake, there was a ripple. I watched the surface still. Then I drained what remained into a locked investment fund with my name and my name only. I didn't tell Ethan yet. He was beside me on the couch, editing a resume for a junior on his team, brow furrowed, sleeves pushed up. His presence always made rooms feel more honest. At 12:07 a.m., my phone discovered the apocalypse. Erica, what did you do? Dad, call me. Now. Mom, Nora, you are tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding. There were voicemails, too, the long, sticky kind. My mother did her wail whisper that makes her sound gentler than the words are. My father used short sentences, the way he does when he's already built the cage and now just needs you to step inside it. Ethan put his hand over mine. Breathe, he said. Then tell me. So I did. I told him everything. I told him about the ring pop and the Aspen photos and the way the trust was treated like an ATM with a family crest. I told him how tired I was of apologizing for being awake. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he nodded once, like a judge who'd heard enough. Good, he said. About time. Across the room, our reflection hovered in the window like ghosts who had finally agreed to stop being haunted. At 8:03 a.m., my phone lit up with a contact I hadn't seen since last Christmas. Uncle Ray. My grandfather's younger brother, the only adult who ever looked at me like I'd already done something right. His voice came through calm as a metronome. "Can you stop by my office this afternoon?" he asked. "I'd rather not talk about this on the phone." I had the absurd urge to apologize for the glitter on my hands. On the way to Ray's office, I replayed my grandfather's voice the way you play a favorite song you never thought you'd hear again. He'd once told me, sitting on the back steps with the dog snoring between us, that honor isn't something you inherit, it's something you reclaim. Paper trails don't lie, he'd added, eyes on the horizon. At the time, I thought he was talking about history. I didn't realize he was writing me an instruction manual. Ray's office felt like him. Orderly, minimal, honest wood. He didn't make small talk. A folder was already open on the desk when I walked in. He slid it to me and folded his hands. Inside, bank records, trust access logs, copies of grandfather's will I had never seen. My throat tightened the way a door does when the house settles. "Nora," Ray said, "are you ready to stop being the nice one?" I didn't recognize my own voice when it answered. "Yes." He didn't smile. He just stood, pulled a few documents from the folder, and set a pen on top. "Sign." I didn't ask what they were. Maybe that sounds reckless. It didn't feel like that. It felt like stepping onto a stone you'd tested with your weight 100 times. When I finished, Ray tapped a paragraph with his index finger. Your grandfather included a clause most people in this family have preferred to ignore. If you established financial independence and responsibility before you turned 30, his eyes flicked to me, you had the option to step in as a shareholder. Your action last night qualifies. The word shareholder moved through me like the first clean breath after a panic attack. Ray leaned back. We'll keep this quiet until the shareholder meeting in 3 weeks. Consider it controlled demolition. He said it like a doctor explaining a procedure. In the meantime, you'll get noise from your parents. Some of it will be sentimental. Most of it will be tactical. Tactical, I repeated, thinking of my mother's softest voice stretched over the sharpest blade. His mouth tightened. They've been treating you like an ATM with a heartbeat. That ends now. I didn't realize I'd been holding my shoulders like armor until I let them drop. For a second, I felt weightless and then very, very heavy. When I left Ray's office, the sky had turned the gray of metal. My phone buzzed again, and I braced. But it wasn't my parents. It was a name I hadn't seen in years. Sloane, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. 2 messages, unreadable at a glance. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I knew how ghosts behaved when you started living like you were alive. At home, Ethan was at the kitchen counter slicing lemons with unnecessary precision. He looked up, reading my face like a weather map. How bad? It's not bad, I said. It's beginning. I told him about Ray, about the clause, about the word shareholder settling somewhere behind my ribs like something that might grow if I let it. Ethan set the knife down and took my hands, thumbs tracing the glitter I still hadn't scrubbed off. Whatever comes, he said, we move together. For the first time all day, I smiled without checking who was watching. That night, my mother tried a new weapon, the hallway performance. She came to our building and spoke just loud enough for neighbors to hear how I was breaking this family, how Erica never asked for more, how I should be ashamed for taking back what we all shared. She left with a dramatic exhale, and 30 minutes later, my aunt called to inform me that my parents had been telling people I'd stolen from my own trust, and that Ethan was controlling me. I recorded the voicemail, emailed it to Uncle Ray. He replied with 2 words, use this. At 12:17 a.m., my phone pinged again. This time I opened Sloane's messages. Heard there's chaos. If Ethan needs someone who understands him, you know where to find me. A second bubble appeared before I could respond. You're not built for this kind of family, Nora. Some women aren't. I deleted both messages and turned my phone face down on the table. I didn't mention them to Ethan. Not because I was afraid, because some things don't deserve oxygen. I lay awake and watched headlights crawl across the ceiling like slow lightning. The house felt quiet in a new way, like the pause before a verdict. I thought about grandfather's hand on my shoulder, about Uncle Ray's steady voice, about Ethan's thumb catching the last fleck of glitter. It wasn't the beginning of a fight. It was the beginning of a reckoning, and I wasn't the quiet one anymore. The next morning, I woke with the kind of clarity that feels like cold water. I brewed coffee, watched the steam lift, and made a list. Not a list of chores, a list of truths I would no longer negotiate with. My name is on the records. My grandfather was not sentimental about numbers. My parents know how to perform remorse, not repair it. Uncle Ray does not waste words. Ethan is my home. Ray's secretary ushered me in with a nod that landed like solidarity. The folder on his desk had multiplied overnight. Thin paper cuts of proof. He slid the top stack toward me and tapped the corner. Start here, he said. Consulting payments to Erica for projects that never existed. Company card charges classified as development travel that looked suspiciously like a honeymoon sampler. a boutique hotel in Capri, a watch purchased in Zurich on a weekend when our offices were closed, my mother's charity luncheon invoices coded as recruitment. The numbers had been dressed up in tidy outfits. The math did not care. Ray flipped to a ledger that tracked my trust access over the last 4 years. Each withdrawal was labeled with a reason that read like a fable: the roof leak no contractor could verify, the tax penalty that never appeared on a return, the tuition top-up for classes Erica never enrolled in. Next to every entry was a signature line: my father's initials, my mother's flourish. The audit trail was not an accusation. It was a confession. I waited for shame to stagger me. What came was something cleaner: relief. The story in my head had not been hysteria. It had been history. I want this on the record, I said. Not just in a drawer. It will be, Ray said, but first we build the spine. He pulled out a single-page memo written in my grandfather's blunt type. It summarized a clause most of the family had chosen to forget. If the designated beneficiary demonstrated independent financial stewardship before age 30, she had the right to join as a voting shareholder and to initiate governance safeguards in the event of misuse by existing officers. It was boilerplate with a pulse. You did what you needed to do, Ray said. That moves us from sentiment to structure. He handed me a pen. I signed the formal request to activate the clause, then another signature for a temporary confidentiality order regarding my addition to the board. He set a slim brass seal on the stamp. The click echoed like a gavel in a small courtroom. Timeline, I said. 3 weeks to the shareholder meeting, he said. We say nothing. We watch. We verify where the money is still bleeding. We present once. Clean. Surgical. That is controlled demolition. He paused, studying my face. Your parents will not come at you directly yet. They will come through your life. He was right before he finished saying it. At lunch, my mother called Ethan. She did not know he had put his phone on speaker and laid it on the table between us, the way you place a specimen beneath glass. Ethan, dear, she began, syrup over gravel. I wanted to check on you. You must be overwhelmed. Nora is under a lot of stress. She is not thinking clearly. She is damaging our name. Marrying into a family at war is not wise. You are such a good influence. Perhaps you can help her understand. Every sentence was dressed like concern and walked like a threat. Ethan did not posture or push back. He said nothing for a long breath that stretched like a held note. Then he calmly said, Please do not call me again. I will record further contact. He hung up and pressed save. His eyes were steady, not triumphant. The file name was simple: Call from M. I sent the recording to Ray with a line that tasted like steel. Use this if needed. He replied within a minute. We will. By evening, my phone had turned into a stage again. Texts that pinged between accusation and affection. My father sent a single line that he must have thought sounded like prophecy. You will regret this. Erica sent a selfie from a dress fitting. Silver sequins like fish scales captioned, Wish you were normal, LOL. It might have landed once. It did not now. I put the phone in a drawer and left it there. We cooked together to keep our hands busy. Lemon chicken, garlic on our fingers, rosemary in the air. I told Ethan the rest. The clause that had been sleeping in my grandfather's will, the signatures that woke it. He listened the way old trees listen to wind. When I finished, he rinsed his hands and leaned his hip against the counter. You are afraid of becoming what they say you are, he said. What do they say I am? I asked. Not because I did not know, but because hearing it stripped the costume. Ungrateful, he said, unstable, disloyal, difficult, a problem to be managed rather than a person to be honored. The words felt like a mirror pulled out of a lake, cold and clarifying. None of that is true, he added. The truth is simpler. You are a woman asking for rightful boundaries, and people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will call that betrayal. I wanted to memorize the sentence the way people memorize prayers. After dinner, I opened the drawer to put my phone to sleep for the night. A new name pulsed on the screen. Sloan. The message preview was a hook. Heard there is trouble. If Ethan needs someone who understands him, I am around. A second line arrived before the first finished loading. Not every man can thrive with a partner who brings chaos. It would have been easy to reply with heat. I did not. I took a screenshot. I archived it in a folder labeled Smoke. I told Ethan, because secrets rot the floorboards, and I am done with sinking houses. He read the messages. He did not roll his eyes or laugh. He only said, Thank you for telling me. Then he blocked her with the same tenderness he uses to close a door against a storm. Clean. Final. No speech. The quiet that followed felt like a promise kept. 2 days later, I stood in a small conference room with glass walls and the hum of a building that believes in itself. Ray introduced me to our counsel, a woman named Lena, with observant eyes and a mechanical pencil she tapped once when she was ready to be direct. "We will build a package," she said. "Bank statements, payroll anomalies, expense reports that do not reconcile, your mother's recorded call, your aunt's voicemail, the trust access logs. We will cross-reference every entry with vendor confirmations. We will interview the accountant who coded Erica's consultant hours. We will screen capture deletions. We will timeline the narrative so a jury could read it without sound." "This is not going to trial," Ray said. "It might not," Lena said, "but we prepare like it will." There was a moment when the room's air felt heavier, as if a storm had stepped inside. Not fear. Weather. A change that requires a coat you are glad to own. After the meeting, Lena handed me a thin binder with tabs. "Action items," she said, a phrase that once would have made me feel like an assistant. Now it felt like armor. I collected vendor names, old invoices, notes from my grandfather's files. I called a supplier who had stopped answering Erica's emails and listened to a sigh that lasted 6 seconds before words returned. He confirmed 3 trips labeled development were personal vacations. He was tired of pretending to be impressed. People reveal themselves when you stop telling them what you hope they will be. That night, my mother staged a new act, the neighbor monologue. Back in our hallway, her voice pitched for an audience behind doors. How I had always been difficult. How Erica never asked for more. How families share. How selfishness looks small in the mirror, but large at the table. When she left, the lights in the hall felt brighter, like they had been unimpressed. Aunt Marla called half an hour later and did not bother with introductions. "They told everyone you stole," she said. "They said Ethan is manipulating you. They said you are unstable. I told them I have known you since you stared at the wallpaper and counted tulips to calm down, and that was not instability. That was strategy." Her voice softened. "I am sorry I did not say more sooner." Sometimes an apology lands like a blanket. Sometimes it lands like a key. This felt like both. I sent Ray the hallway audio and the aunt's call. He filed each piece into a system that looked boring and was not. Then he sent me a single line. "Quiet is our friend until the meeting. Let them talk. Let them write. Let them record their own reasons." On the third night, the house learned a new stillness, the kind that arrives after decision. I sat at the table with the binder and a cup of tea that drifted steam like a soft flag. Across from me, Ethan sketched a rough seating chart for a future that looked like a small party with warm lights and no performance. He put my name next to his and drew a little square for a dance floor. "What will happen when they realize they cannot bully you back?" he asked. "They will try a different door," I said, "and then a different window." "And if everything stays loud?" he asked. "Then we rise above the noise," I said, "and we make our own music." He smiled, not at the metaphor, but at the decision. The next morning, the first official step clicked into place. A confidential notice circulated to the board that an additional voting member would be present at the upcoming meeting. No names included, no fanfare, just a line with legal weight. Ray texted me a single word: "Done." Later that day, Erica sent a new burst of messages, more frantic than cruel. She asked if I remembered the time she broke the vase, and I said it was me to stop the punishment. She asked if I had to make everything about money. She asked if I would at least leave her wedding alone. I stared at the screen and remembered the ring pop. I typed 5 words and then deleted them. I typed 3. I deleted those too. In the end, I wrote nothing. Silence is not always surrender. Sometimes it is respect for the truth you already spoke. Night fell like a curtain drawing breath. I set my alarm. I set the binder by the door. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and left it face down without a tremor. In the dark, I repeated my list of truths until it steadied my pulse. My name is on the records. My grandfather planned for this. My parents are not the authors of my future. Uncle Ray is steady. Ethan is my home. Controlled demolition had begun. The old house would not survive it. I would. 3 weeks later, the day of the shareholder meeting, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. I dressed the way my grandfather used to for Sunday work. Simple, sharp, no extravagance. Ethan tied my hair back for me. Steady hands, no words needed. When he looked at me, it wasn't pride or pity I saw. It was recognition. Like he knew this wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. At 9 a.m., I walked into the headquarters my grandfather had built brick by brick before I was even born. Every sound was too clear. The click of my heels, the whisper of paper, the hum of fluorescent lights. Uncle Ray was already there, waiting by the door with a coffee cup and that calm, unreadable look of his. "You ready?" he asked. "I've been ready for years," I said. Inside the conference room, the long mahogany table gleamed like a mirror. My parents stood near the head of it, laughing too loudly at something no one else found funny. My mother wore her favorite emerald set, a performance jewel. My father straightened his tie 3 times when he saw me. The laughter drained out of the room like water from a cracked vase. "What is she doing here?" my father demanded. Ray didn't even look up from his folder. "She's a shareholder now. Didn't you get the memo?" My mother's face went pale. "You can't be serious." Ray's tone was surgical. "I am." The meeting began. Routine updates filled the first few minutes. Vendor reports, quarterly summaries, marketing proposals. My parents relaxed, mistaking civility for safety. Then Ray cleared his throat. The subtle sound of demolition beginning. "There are discrepancies," he said, "significant ones." He projected the financial logs on the wall, expenses labeled as business trips that were actually personal vacations, transfers marked as bonuses for non-existent consulting work. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The paper spoke. My mother tried to sound composed. "These were internal reallocations. Family operations are never—" Ray cut her off. "You used your daughter's trust fund to finance a wedding." He slid a folder toward her. Inside was a copy of the recorded call between her and Ethan, the one where she warned him to stay away from me. He pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. "Ethan, you must be overwhelmed. Nora is unstable. You should think twice before marrying into this family." The silence that followed was nuclear. One of the board members, a cousin from my grandfather's side, leaned forward. "Is this what you've been doing behind our backs?" My father's face darkened. "You have no right to judge us." But he was talking to ghosts now. Ray's voice stayed level. "You've stolen from this company, lied to your family, mocked your daughter for the very decency you exploited. We've had enough." He turned to me. "The board is prepared to vote. Nora?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." The vote was unanimous. My parents were stripped of financial control. Erica's bloated salary was nullified. Every fraudulent expense retracted. When it was over, my mother stared at me as though I'd pulled the ground out from under her feet. My father said nothing. He just walked out, stiff, quiet, smaller than I'd ever seen him. Ray exhaled softly and handed me a folder. "Your turn," he said. "Start rebuilding." That night, I didn't celebrate. Ethan and I walked down by the harbor, the wind sharp with salt. He reached for my hand. "You did it," he said. "It doesn't feel like victory," I said. "It feels like breathing again." He smiled. "That's what freedom usually feels like." For a moment, I thought that was the end. But freedom, I was learning, always stirs the dust before it settles. 2 days later, Erica called. Her voice was brittle. "You ruined everything, Nora. You're jealous. You've always been pathetic. No one will forgive you." I looked out at the skyline, all steel and distance. "Good luck explaining that to the board," I said, and hung up. That night I slept better than I had in years. But peace doesn't last long when people lose their power. 3 mornings later, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered, no return address. The paper was yellowed, the handwriting unmistakable, my grandfather's, dated 2005. Inside, just one paragraph. "For the one who restores our name when others bury it in greed, there is a key beneath this letter, and a door that only honor can unlock." A small brass key was taped at the bottom, along with the name of a bank I'd never heard of. I drove straight to Uncle Ray's office. He read the letter twice, then leaned back, expression unreadable. "He planned this," he said quietly. "He knew what your parents would do." Ray made a phone call to an old contact in banking. Within hours, we were on the road, 2 hours north, to a quiet town with more memory than people. The old bank was now a law firm, its windows dusty but dignified. A receptionist led us to a back office, and within minutes, an archivist returned with a small lockbox wrapped in brown paper. Inside, documents, property deeds, and a flash drive. My grandfather had been quietly building a holding company, all in my name. Investments, partnerships, real estate. He'd been waiting for me to wake up. By the time we left that office, my hands were shaking. "This changes everything," I whispered. Ray nodded. "It always was yours. You just had to claim it." That night, I told Ethan. He didn't look surprised. "He believed in you before you did," he said. "Now you just have to believe it too." But the wind was already changing again, because the moment I stepped into my grandfather's legacy, my parents decided to burn the rest. It began with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. The woman on the other end introduced herself as a lawyer representing my parents. Her tone was polite, professional, almost gentle, the kind of calm that precedes chaos. "Ms. Caldwell," she said, "your parents are filing a civil claim. They allege that you manipulated an elderly relative into transferring company assets and coerced family members into changing legal documents." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. It wasn't shock. It was a strange, cold clarity. They weren't trying to fight back. They were trying to erase me. When I told Ray, he laughed once, low and humorless. "They're throwing fire at a brick wall," he said. "It won't stick, but it's going to get ugly." And it did. The court dismissed the case within weeks, but the damage was in the noise. A local business column ran a headline, "Family Feud Rocks Caldwell Industries." They used a 10-year-old photo of my father and me at a charity event, both of us smiling like strangers pretending to belong in the same story. The gossip spread fast. Relatives whispered, vendors hesitated, and investors called to check in. But Ray was unbothered. He told me, "Let the truth breathe. Lies suffocate on their own." I wanted to believe him, until Erica vanished. No posts, no calls, no explanations. She missed her own rescheduled wedding, and vendors started calling me to ask what had happened. I thought she'd gone into hiding, until Aunt Lisa, my mother's quiet younger sister, reached out. "I got a letter from Erica," she said. Her voice trembled. "She says she didn't know everything, that she needs time." That same night, someone left a folder outside our apartment door. No note, no signature, just my name written in careful loops. Inside were printed emails, hundreds of them, between my parents, Erica, vendors, and accountants. Every transaction, every lie, every fake consulting job. The final email was from Erica to Mom, dated 2 weeks ago. Maybe we are the bad ones. For the first time in my life, I felt something other than anger when I saw her name. Pity, maybe even grief. Ethan stood behind me, reading over my shoulder. "Maybe she's trying to make it right," he said softly. "Or maybe she just wants to feel less guilty," I whispered. I sent the folder to Ray. He called 10 minutes later. "This is gold," he said. "It proves everything. But it also means they'll double down." He was right. The next day, my father sent a formal demand for emotional damages, claiming I had defamed the family and destroyed their future. My mother followed, with a voicemail that sounded rehearsed. "Blood is blood, Nora. You'll regret doing this to us." But the words didn't cut anymore. They slid off like rain on glass. That night, I wrote a single statement and sent it to every vendor, client, and family contact. My parents are no longer associated with Caldwell Industries in any capacity. Any communication from them does not represent our company. Legal actions are in progress. Ray approved it with one word: perfect. Ethan pressed send. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was eerie. It was the sound of something collapsing in the distance. For the first time in months, I turned my phone off and slept without expecting it to light up with threats. But silence, I was learning, always hides motion underneath. A week later, Ray called me into a board meeting. Just him and 3 people I didn't recognize. 2 men in sharp suits, and a woman whose laptop never closed. "These," Ray said, "are the acquisition partners I told you about. They've been waiting for the right leadership. You're it." I froze. "You're saying—" He smiled. "They want to invest in you, Nora, not your parents. You have something they never did: credibility." We went through the proposal, a merger, modern restructuring, full transparency. By the time the meeting ended, my equity had tripled. The company my parents once controlled was now mine to rebuild. When I left the office, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, rooted, like my grandfather's voice was somewhere in the air, saying, "Honor isn't inherited, it's reclaimed." But the next twist was one I didn't see coming. A cousin, Danielle, one of the few who'd sided with me, called one evening, whispering like the phone might betray her. "They're trying again," she said. "Your parents are calling relatives, asking them to sign a petition to vote you out. They're saying you forged documents. They even told people Uncle Ray manipulated you." I asked what happened next. She laughed, bitter and small. "Half of them forwarded me the screenshots. The other half blocked your mom's number. Even Grandma's done with them." For the first time in months, I laughed too. It wasn't a cruel laugh. It was disbelief mixed with relief. By the end of the week, my father sent one last message. "If you keep pushing us out, you'll regret it. Blood is blood." I stared at the text for a long time, then deleted it, because I finally understood. Blood may bind you, but integrity defines you. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about legacy, about who would carry the Caldwell name forward without corrupting it. I didn't want revenge. I wanted release. And for the first time, I felt it. The war they started was over, not because I'd won, but because they'd already lost everything they mistook for love. The quiet didn't last long. It never does when the ground shifts under people who've built their lives on control. 3 days later, a message from Ray appeared on my screen. "Come in, it's time." When I arrived at the office, he was sitting with a small team and a thick folder in front of him. He didn't need to explain what it was. I already knew. "This," he said, tapping the folder, "finalizes the separation. Your parents' signatures, credits, and legal affiliations will be removed from every company record, permanently." I sat down, eyes tracing the papers without reading them. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like closure with consequences. "They'll hate me for this," I said. "They already do," Ray replied. "But hate fades. Legacy doesn't." He pushed a pen toward me. "Sign it." The sound of my signature was quieter than I expected. A whisper, not a roar. Yet it was the loudest piece I'd ever heard. After that, everything moved quickly. The acquisition deal went through. The holding company my grandfather had created became the backbone of the new Caldwell Industries. We rebuilt from the inside out. The old guard, my parents' allies, resigned quietly or were let go. Loyal employees, the ones who'd been overlooked for years, finally got the promotions they deserved. Pay raises, new policies, transparency. For once, the company didn't feel like a family business. It felt like a business run by a family that finally grew up. One afternoon, I found myself standing in my grandfather's old office, untouched since his death. The air smelled faintly of cedar and thyme. On his desk sat the photo I remembered from childhood, him holding me at age 6, my head buried in his shoulder, his hand resting protectively on mine. "Thank you," I whispered. A soft knock at the door pulled me back. It was Ethan, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use a break," he said. I smiled. "Feels strange. I used to dream about moments like this, and now that they're here, I don't feel triumphant. Just still." He leaned against the doorway. "Maybe that's the point. You don't need to win anymore. You just need to live." I reached for his hand. "With you, I think I finally can." We planned our engagement quietly. A small garden ceremony, fairy lights, no photographers, no press. Just friends, Ray, and a few relatives who still believed in decency over appearances. But before that day came, there was one last family gathering we couldn't avoid. Grandmother's birthday dinner. Everyone knew what it really was, a silent referendum. Who still sided with whom? When Ethan and I walked in, laughter filled the room. Real laughter, not the brittle kind my mother used to command. Ray was already seated, telling a story to one of the younger cousins. The air was warm. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then the door opened. My parents walked in. They looked smaller somehow, not thinner, just diminished. My mother's eyes darted across the room, searching for allies that weren't there. My father's shoulders sagged, under a weight no amount of pride could hold up anymore. No one stood, no one greeted them. Even the noise in the room dimmed naturally, without malice, just acknowledgement that the era had ended. They took seats at the far end of the table, ate quietly, left early. When they were gone, grandmother reached for my hand. Her skin was paper soft, but her grip still steady. "Your grandfather," she said, "never trusted them, but he believed in you, and now I see why." I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just nodded. On the drive home, Ethan asked, "How does it feel, having everything now? The business, the control, the power?" I stared out the window at the passing city lights. It doesn't feel like having everything. It feels like finally having nothing to prove. He smiled at that, reached over, and took my hand. "Then you've already won." I looked at him, the man who stayed through the noise, who never demanded I shrink or perform. "No," I said softly, "we won." The trust account was gone, the company rebuilt. The Caldwell name had been reshaped, not to erase the past, but to correct it. My parents and Erica were still alive somewhere, living in the echo of choices they'd made, but they no longer owned a single piece of me. That night, I stood on the balcony, wind brushing against my face, the city humming below. I thought about my grandfather's words again, about honor not being inherited, but reclaimed. I finally understood what he meant. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money or property. It's the courage to stop pretending broken things are whole. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I'm free." And for the first time in my life, I truly was.